Hey guys, this is the Comics Kid 2099, and this is Mark 2 of my birthday haul video. I filmed a video, took me about 20-ish minutes to talk about all the stuff I got for my birthday, and I wasn't really happy with the footage. I kind of mumbled and stuttered throughout the whole video, so I am going to try and talk a little more quickly about all of these books that I got for my birthday, starting with Essential Wolverine Volume 1. If you have been keeping up with my channel for any length of time, you probably know that I am a pretty huge X-Men fan. So much so that I want to be able to try and read every X-Men comic I can possibly read. I want to try and own as many as I possibly can. I know that's basically impossible. Not every X-Men comic has been collected in trade. I also only read trade paperbacks, so those are a little bit contradictory, but I've got almost 3 shelves of X-Men books on one bookcase, and this will definitely add to that. As far as Wolverine solo stories go, I am not a huge fan of the solo Wolverine. I think that Wolverine works much better when he's bouncing off other members of a team of characters. But I will read these because some Wolverine solo stories are really good. I just want to say that for the most part, though, I prefer Wolverine when he is working with a team of characters. Also, if you read Essential books, you may notice this format is kind of unfamiliar to you probably. This is what the books used to look like in the very late 90s, very early 2000s. And then they changed it up a little bit. They kind of changed the covers. It looks very different on the side. And really quickly, I'm going to show you what the other Essential books look like. Okay, over there on the top shelf, that is the beginning of my X-Men shelf. The Essential books are the ones with the black covers and the red letters saying X-Men. And there is one right there in the middle. That is the same format as this Wolverine book. So I believe this printing of Essential Wolverine Volume 1 contains the same number of issues as later printings of Essential Wolverine Volume 1. However, that Essential X-Men book that was an older printing, it is missing an annual that the later printing of Essential X-Men Volume 3 is collecting. So I'm risking missing a few issues by probably getting, if I order Volume 2 online, I will probably get a later printing of Volume 2. But hopefully it's not a different number of issues collected in the later printings. Hopefully it's all the same number of issues. Superman, Critical Condition. This is from the late 90s, early 2000s. This is from when Joe Kelly, Jeff Loeb, and J.M. DeMatteis were working on Superman. I have Volume 3, Volume 5, and Volume 6 of this series. I've only read Volumes 3 and 6, and I have not yet read Volume 5. Well, this is Volume 4. So now I am only missing Volumes 1 and 2. Unless there's a Volume 7. I don't think there is. I think they stopped at Volume 6 and they may have changed up the creative teams. So I'm looking forward to reading this because I really liked Volume 6 when I read it years ago. Didn't like Volume 3 as much. I had a few issues with that. I hope that those issues are resolved with Volume 4. This should be a lot of fun because I've recently discovered I like Superman quite a bit. I used to not like the stories nearly as much as I do now. I've always liked the character of Superman. I think he is a very fun character. He's a very good character, but I've never really gotten into the stories until very recently after the Man of Steel movie. So this is something that I will enjoy reading very much, I believe. The Incredible Hulk, Hide in Plain Sight. This is from Bruce Jones's run on the Hulk, which was from the early 2000s. And I have talked a little bit about his run in one of my collection videos in the past. Really quickly, let me show you the beginning of his run. Okay, you see those right there? I don't see how you wouldn't be able to. Those 2 books right before Planet Hulk, that is roughly the first half of Bruce Jones's run on the Incredible Hulk. And sadly, Marvel did not collect his entire run in these hardcovers, but I do believe that fairly recently they started recollecting his run, but it was in a different format. They did not look like these books. So maybe if you wait a little bit, you will be able to get all of Bruce Jones's run in the new hardcovers. But I was tired of waiting because these books were from the early 2000s, shortly after the comics had come out. So I didn't think that they were ever going to collect the rest of that run. So I went ahead and got a couple of other paperbacks which finish off his run. So this book is volume 5, I believe. Yep. And those other two books essentially is volumes 1 through 4. So then there's this one, another one, and then I think I have volume 8. So I am missing volume 7. And then I will have all of Bruce Jones's run on the Hulk. And I really am looking forward to reading that entire run just all the way through. I might want to do some videos on that run. I don't know. I may just do it just for fun because I really love his run. I think it's highly underrated. I remember a lot of people seem to not like that run very much, but it was very influential in the Incredible Hulk movie, the one with Edward Norton, and I think it's just really good comics in general. So this one, I'm glad to have it. X-Men: The Hidden Years, yet another book from the late 90s. This is by John Byrne. If you are familiar with the X-Men, essentially this is in that lost era. And if you are not familiar with the X-Men, I am about to explain what I mean by that. The original X-Men comics from the 1960s ran up to issue 66 before going into reprints for 30 issues. And then around issue 91, something like that, the brand new team came in. So all of these guys except for Cyclops left the team, and then you had Wolverine, Storm, Nightcrawler, Colossus, Banshee, etc. That was the new X-Men team. So during that time, which was about 5 years, the X-Men did not have new stories being printed. It was reprint stories. But as far as the Marvel Universe was concerned, if you asked Spider-Man, hey, what's going on with the X-Men over there? He would say, well, they're still active. This team is still active. So this series in the late 90s, almost 30 years after the series went into reprints in the 60s, the conceit is, okay, after issue 66, this series picks up with their adventure. It's showing you what's going on with the team before the new X-Men pick up and these guys go off and form the Defenders and the Champions and whatever. I have not read it. I hope it's good. I do know that this was one of the casualties of Joe Quesada in the early 2000s, late 90s. He basically canceled several X-Men titles which he believed were superfluous. Among those titles were Generation X, X-Men: The Hidden Years, Mutant X, X-Man. Those series, admittedly, some of them probably needed mercy kills because they really were kind of superfluous, and some of them, like this one, probably could have gone on a little longer. I think I've heard John Byrne say that he planned to do this series for about 5 years, which would have been about as long as the reprints were going on in the 60s. So it would have been essentially the same length of time that the series was reprinting the X-Men older stories. And so John Byrne, I don't believe, was very happy that this series got canceled. Oddly enough, now the X-Men has about 4,000 X-Men series, so I'm really curious what Joe Quesada, the creative consultant of Marvel, thinks of X-Men having so many series now, when in the 2000s he very clearly seemed to think that the franchise did not need that many series. So, oh well, hypocrisy, what can you do? This is the beginning of, I believe, 3 indie books that I got. I am the kind of guy, I like the X-Men, I like Superman, I like Batman, I like all of them very well, but sometimes I like to step out of the box and I like to read science fiction and fantasy and pulpy stories that are not about those characters. I like to read creator-owned stories that are about new properties at indie companies. Sometimes they're indie, sometimes they really are indie. In this case, this is from a company that I do not recognize. Shadowline. I think I've heard of Shadowline, but I've never bought anything from them, I don't think. And this is, as you can tell, kind of a post-apocalyptic robot dystopia storyline. It's got a female heroine on it. It's called Debris, as I said. I know very little about this. I must have been interested at one point to have put it on a list for someone to buy, but I don't, right off the top of my head, know much about it other than I'm looking forward to reading it because it is a science fiction-y, post-apocalyptic dystopia story. And I like getting into the indie side of things every once in a while. So this will be fun. It's drawn by it's done by a few creators. I don't actually recognize their names, but I still think this looks pretty good. Very kind of cartoony, manga-y. Looks like it'll be a lot of fun. The Iron Saint. This one is from Top Cow. I have read some stuff from Top Cow before. It is a division of Image Comics. And this is by some creators. I don't recognize any of those names except for Francis Manapul. And I believe recently he has been drawing and or writing The Flash. I don't remember if he is also drawing right now. I know at one point he was drawing The Flash when Jeff Johns was writing it. And recently under the New 52, I know that he was writing it. I don't know if he was also drawing it. So that's about all I know about this book, is that Francis Manapul was on it. It looks very pulpy, almost cartoonishly so. It definitely looks cartoony, but it looks like it's kind of making fun of the old 1930s look and style. Because see, that police car does not look like a modern day police car. And it looks like we got an Italian mafia guy. We've got the scantily clad lady hero. We got someone in the Vatican, I guess. And then we got a golem-type creature. Not the Tolkien creature, but the Jewish mythology creature. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm stumbling into territory where I am ignorant of everything. So, moving on. This is called the Iron Saint. I'm assuming that there is a saint made out of iron in this story. I think at one point this book was titled Iron Maiden, and if I'm not mistaken, the band actually sued or sent a cease and desist letter to Top Cow saying, hey, you should change the name. Even though technically the Iron Maiden was a torture chamber device from the distant past. I was going to try and say a year number, but I don't know. So they were, I believe, naming it after the torture device. They weren't naming it after the band, but then they had to change the name anyway because who's going to win in a court case? Iron Maiden, the band, or a comic book from Top Cow? It's going to be the band. So they went ahead and changed the name. It may not even have anything to do with a saint made out of iron. I don't know. But I am looking forward to reading this because it looks like it could be a lot of fun. Really thick, too. I wasn't expecting it to be that big of a comic book. Ignition City by Warren Ellis at Avatar. This is kind of, it looks like it's going to be like Planetary. Planetary was also by Warren Ellis, and the premise of Planetary was all of fiction exists in this world, and you've got these people and they are investigating certain cases that involve superpowered people, sort of. I'm really not doing a good job describing it. This kind of looks like that. It kind of looks like Warren Ellis is doing a pastiche / homage to various pulp characters or characters that are themselves doing a pastiche of pulp characters. This guy right here, I think, may be a Doc Savage homage. That may be Rosie the Riveter, and that guy could be the Rocketeer. In fact, I'm very certain that that's the Rocketeer, which for you guys who may only be familiar with the movie, as pretty much I'm only familiar with the movie, I believe the Rocketeer was actually created in the 90s, but was meant to be set in the 1930s. This, I know very little about it, other than it's supposed to be an homage to the 1930s pulp action heroes. It's probably going to be a little cynical because it is Warren Ellis. Warren Ellis is definitely not someone I would consider an optimist. He's very jaded, if you will. It could be really fantastic. It could be on the level of Planetary, or it could be on the level of Black Summer, which is also by Warren Ellis, and that is a book I did not care for. So this one, I could be really loving it, or I could be really hating it. I'm kind of doubting that there's a middle ground here, but we will see when I read it. OMAC, Volume 1, OMACtivate. This is from the DC New 52, and it is one of the books, if you recently saw my video, the New 52 Hit List, this is one of the titles that I was very interested in reading. Sadly, this series got canceled. I don't know if it's because Dan Didio only had ideas to last 8 issues, or if there was plans to cancel it from the beginning. I'm not really sure. Maybe they were planning to go forward, much more forward with it, but then it got canceled because of low sales. I don't know. I'm interested in this because I like Jack Kirby characters and concepts. Sometimes I feel like Jack Kirby himself was not the best writer. I may be about to catch some heat for that. I think he was a really good idea man. I think he was phenomenal at designing characters. But I think when it came to actually executing ideas and scripting ideas, he may not have been the best at that. I think sometimes he really did need a scripter to kind of fine-tune some of his ideas. And I would say that his OMAC from the 70s was definitely an example of that. I think that was a comic book that had a lot of really awesome ideas, but if you had had someone who was a little better at turning them into a more manageable, more human story, it would have lasted a lot longer. It would have been more recognized, I think, for the masterpiece that it had the potential to be. I'm kind of rambling a lot. What does that have to do with this OMAC? I don't really know, because this OMAC does not exactly look like the OMAC from Jack Kirby. This looks more like a monster from Atlantis. That looks like Namor's cousin or something like that with a mohawk. So this also, I think, is probably set in the present day, maybe? Yeah, it looks like, see, there's a magazine with Mr. Terrific. I bet I just spoiled an issue of OMAC. I am sorry. So this is set in the present day. Jack Kirby's OMAC was not. So it looks like we got Dan Didio and Keith Giffen as the art. Love Keith Giffen's art. Looks like those two guys are going to be paying homage to Jack Kirby, but they're doing their own thing. I may love this, I may not. Either way, this is the only volume. This series did get canceled, so it's not like I'm going to be committing to many more stories with OMAC. But I was definitely interested in this from the beginning when New 52 announced that this was going to be a thing, and it just took me a while to get around to it. And so now I've got the volume. I hope that this is good, because guys, if you've been keeping up with my reviews of stuff from the New 52, I haven't been enjoying a whole lot of what I've been reading. So I hope that I can find something from the New 52 that doesn't get canceled after 6 issues, and I can also enjoy it, so that I can have something from DC Comics to read other than stories from the past, from before New 52, that I can reread. And sometimes that's an option. Speak of the devil, we've got right here Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes, the early years. I know nothing about this. I don't know if it's a mini-series or if it is I don't know if it was part of the Superman ongoing series and it's a storyline. I know that very recently, somewhat recently, Jeff Johns did a storyline called Superman and the Legion of Superheroes. I reviewed that storyline on this channel, I believe. This might be kind of a reaction to that, because that storyline, if I am not mistaken, kind of revived the idea that Superman, when he was a younger boy, was an ally to the Legion of Superheroes. And so this might be a mini-series kind of detailing his adventures with the Legion, based on Jeff Johns retconning or re-retconning that idea back into the Superman mythos. I have always wanted to love the Legion of Superheroes, but DC Comics makes it infinitely impossible to do that, because they have rebooted this franchise about 5 times, and every time they do that, they tend to kind of make it vastly different than what it was before the reboot. And also, there are decades of Legion stories that have not been collected, and that also makes it really hard to really get into this franchise. But when I can, I will be getting Legion books, just because what I have read, I've really loved. So this should be a lot of fun to read. And Paul Levitz, he is a name that is well known in Legion lore. He wrote a book that I reviewed on this channel, Legion of Superheroes, An Eye for an Eye. So he's definitely a knowledgeable guy about the Legion. So he is probably the guy that you would want to be writing something like this. So looking forward to reading this. I may review it, I may not. That is true for all of these books, by the way. I may review them, may not. Just depends on if I have lots of good things to say about them. S.H.I.E.L.D. Architects of Forever. This is one, first of all, it's hardcover. I don't know if this was an ongoing series or if this was a mini-series. I know this was around a few years ago, like 2010, and when it was going on, I heard nothing but good things about this series. As near as I can tell, this is detailing the origins of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I believe that's Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo, one of those guys. I always get all those guys confused, but whichever one it was that invented the helicopter or designed the first helicopter, whatever, I think that's him right there. So, this guy, not this guy. And I don't believe before this, I don't think that S.H.I.E.L.D. really had origins. I think their origins were just their first appearances in Marvel Comics. So, like, in the 1960s, Nick Fury, agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., S.H.I.E.L.D. was just an organization, and that was basically all we knew. We knew that it was an organization that worked as basically the government in the Marvel Universe. So, this sounds like it will be a lot of fun. I am very much looking forward to kind of an alternate history of the Marvel Universe. I love alternate history stories, so I think I will have a blast reading this. I don't know if there's like a volume 2 or if this is the only story that is Hickman's S.H.I.E.L.D. storyline thing. I don't know. I'll have to look that up because I did this video unprepared. The last one. This one I did not have on my list. I know very little about it, but I'm really glad I got it because although it was kind of a mistake, it's got Paul Dini, who I have said before that I really think everyone should be reading Paul Dini's work in comic book. If you are a fan of Batman the Animated Series, Paul Dini worked on that series quite a bit, and he has done a little bit of an extensive run on Batman. You can find his work in, I think, 3 or 4 volumes of Detective Comics and then like 3 or 4 volumes of The Streets of Gotham. I think he did a run on Gotham Girls or the Gotham Sirens, whatever it was called. So he's done some work in Batman. He's also done some creative own stuff like Mutant Texas and Madame Mirage. All of that stuff is really enjoyable, really fantastic. This is, first of all, it's huge. I was kind of taken aback by how giant this is. Then I realized why. This, you may have heard of those standalone graphic novels that are kind of tall, like Superman Peace on Earth, Wonder Woman Truth in the Spirit, and Batman War on Crime. Paul Dini and Alex Ross did all of those, and they did, I think, JLA Secret Origins or something like that. This is a compendium of all of those. So you've got all 3 of those Wonder Woman, Trinity, Superman, Batman stories, and then you've got one with the rest of the League. I am super looking forward to reading this, guys. I didn't know what it was when I first opened it, and I just knew, well, it's got Alex Ross, so that's a plus, and it's got Paul Dini, which is definitely a plus. So this should be a ton of fun to read. Probably, if you are a fan of either of those gentlemen, this is a must-have. If you are a fan of the DC Universe, specifically, maybe you don't like the New 52 and you wish that DC would restore itself to something that is a little bit closer to your childhood, maybe you should have this, because this is your childhood, but done very competently. Not something where it's like, you read it as a child and you thought it was good and then you go back to it and you realize it's not as good. No. This stuff is actually good from what I've read. I think I've read the Superman Peace on Earth book and it was really solid. So, that's everything. No more. So, let me know what you guys think. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you've read any of these books, sound off in the comments below. Let me know what you think of these books, what you think of this video. If you like the video, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I will be back with you guys tomorrow for a different kind of video. Until then, I'll see you guys later. Have a good day.